I'm going to be honest with you. The moment my mother looked me in the eye and said I wasn't real family, something inside me broke. But not the way she thought it would. Not in a way that made me smaller. It made me see everything clearly for the first time in 32 years. And that's when I realized what she'd actually been building toward the whole time. I'm Sarah Chen, 32 years old. I work as a financial auditor in Austin, Texas. And this is the story of how my mother's words accidentally exposed a plan I never saw coming. One that could have cost me everything if I hadn't paid attention. Most people don't talk about this kind of family stuff publicly. It feels disloyal, like airing dirty laundry. But the thing is, what happened next wasn't just about my mom and me. It involved my entire family, a $40,000 loan, and a legal cease and desist letter. And if you want to understand how it all unraveled, you need to know where it started. Keep listening. My mom remarried when I was 8. His name was Robert, and he came with 2 kids, Marcus, who was 10, and Elena, who was 12. My dad was still in the picture, but they'd split amicably, and my mom had full custody. So suddenly, our house got bigger, louder, and I became one of 4. I don't want to make this into a step-family sob story. That wasn't really what this was. But I need you to understand the baseline. My mom's approach to blended families was conditional. She wanted us all to be one unit. Which sounds nice, right? Except one unit meant that my previous memories, my dad, my childhood identity, were supposed to fold into this new shape she was building. She didn't say it like that. She was subtle. But I felt it. When my dad would pick me up for the weekend, she'd ask Marcus and Elena if they wanted to come. When I'd mention something about my dad's house, she'd go quiet. When I asked her if I was still her real daughter now that I had step-siblings, she laughed and said, "Of course." But her eyes didn't laugh with her. Elena got it immediately. She was older, and she understood the assignment. She started calling my mom, Mom, instead of Carol, and she dropped any reference to her biological dad. Within 6 months, she was the perfect stepdaughter, poised, compliant, the proof that blended families could work. Marcus was different. He pushed back. He talked about his mom constantly. She lived 3 states away, and he refused to treat my mom like his primary parent. My mom tolerated it, mostly because he was male, and she had different expectations for him. But she didn't like it. I could see it in how she'd tense when he mentioned his mom. And me? I tried to be normal about it. I'd call Robert Dad sometimes to make my mom happy. I'd be extra nice to Elena, but I also kept my memories safe. I knew, even as an 8-year-old, somehow I knew, that you don't let people rewrite your history just because they marry into it. My mom noticed, and over time, her subtle coldness toward me deepened. It was never overt. It was getting Elena a laptop for her birthday, but telling me I could use the family computer. Planning family vacations, and then mentioning casually that Marcus and Elena should probably decide the itinerary, since they're the ones sharing a room. Saying things like, "Elena's so organized, she really helps me with the budget," with a pointed look at me. Referring to Elena and Marcus as my kids, and me as Sarah, in front of others. One line I'll never forget. It was my mom, at a Thanksgiving dinner when I was 14, talking to her sister. Elena had just gotten accepted to UT Austin, and my mom was glowing. She said, "Elena's always been so driven. She knows what she wants, not like some kids who just drift." She wasn't looking at me when she said it, but I felt it land. Here's the thing. I didn't drift. I actually thrived, partly because I felt like I had to prove something. I got good grades. I went to the University of Texas, same as Elena, but I chose something practical, accounting. And while Elena was switching majors and accumulating debt, I got summer internships, built a portfolio, and landed a job at a mid-size audit firm before I even graduated. By 23, I had my own apartment. By 25, I'd bought a condo using my own savings and good credit. I was the one my dad would call when he had financial questions. I was the one who understood contracts, tax implications, interest rates. I could read a balance sheet like other people read text messages. This matters because later, when my mom came to me asking for help, she was coming to that person. The competent one. The one with money and knowledge. She wasn't asking Elena, who'd managed to rack up $60,000 in student loan debt while working sporadically as a life coach. She wasn't asking Marcus, who'd dropped out of college to start a podcast that never made money. She was asking me. And at the time, I thought that meant something. I thought it meant she trusted me. It took me a long time to understand what she actually wanted. Fast forward to last spring. I'm 31. My mom's been married to Robert for almost 24 years at this point. Elena's working in digital marketing and living in Houston. Marcus is back living with my parents while he figures out his next move. And my dad's still in the picture. We grab lunch once a month, talk on the phone. I wasn't as close to my mom as I used to be, but we were cordial. We'd have lunch maybe once every 6 weeks. We'd text occasionally. She'd send me pictures of her garden. It wasn't warm, but it was stable. Then one Tuesday in April, my mom called and asked if I could come over for dinner that weekend. Just us, she said, which meant not Robert, not the step-siblings, just her and me. I was surprised, to be honest. Our one-on-one time had become rare, but I said yes. When I got there Saturday evening, she'd made my favorite meal, this specific type of stir-fry she used to make when I was a kid. A small thing, but it registered. She was trying to set a tone. We sat down and made small talk for maybe 10 minutes. Then she said, "Sarah, I need to talk to you about something serious." My stomach tightened, but I nodded and waited. She explained that Robert had made some bad financial decisions a few years back. He'd co-signed loans for both Elena and Marcus, Elena for her coaching certification, Marcus for his podcast equipment. The loans had gone into default because neither of them had the income to sustain the payments. Here's the part that matters. Robert's credit was destroyed. He couldn't get approved for anything, and they needed $40,000 to cover some medical debt that had been piling up. My mother had been diagnosed with early-stage arthritis and needed consistent treatment, plus they wanted to refinance their mortgage at a better rate, and the lender wouldn't touch Robert. My mom looked at me across the table and said, "I need you to co-sign a loan. You have excellent credit. Banks will work with you." I was quiet for a moment. Then I asked, "For how long would I be on the hook?" "Just until Robert's credit improves," she said. "Maybe 2 or 3 years." "And if he doesn't pay?" I asked. She flinched. And that's when she said it. Not angrily, not loudly, just with this tired certainty. "He'll pay. And if he doesn't, well, you're not even real family anyway. It won't matter." I think I stopped breathing. She kept talking. She said, "I mean, you have your own life. You're independent. This would just be business. Real family takes chances for each other, and you've always been so separate. So it shouldn't even be a big deal for you." The logic was so twisted. She was asking me to take on a massive financial liability as non-family, while also telling me that real family would do this without hesitation. It was designed to make me feel guilty either way I answered. But I didn't answer right then. I sat with my stir-fry getting cold and I thought about $40,000, and I thought about my credit, and I thought about what happens when someone you love stops paying a loan you've promised to cover. And then I said something I'd never said to her before. No. Not, "Let me think about it." Not, "Can we talk about this more?" Just no. She didn't respond well. What happened next was textbook. My mom's face changed. Not angry exactly, but wounded. She said, "I can't believe you'd refuse. Do you know what I've done for you? And that's when the emotional machine started. She reminded me of every sacrifice she'd made, every dollar she'd spent on my education, every time she'd been there when I was sick. She talked about how much she'd given up to be a present parent after the divorce. None of it was untrue, but it was being weaponized. She said, Elena would do this for me in a heartbeat, but you've always been selfish, even as a child. You always wanted what was best for you, and you didn't care what that meant for the rest of us. I tried to explain that this wasn't about love. It was about risk management. That co-signing a loan when your co-signer has already destroyed their credit once is objectively a bad idea. She said, "See? That's exactly what I mean. You can't think about anyone but yourself." And then, this is the moment that clarified everything. She said, "Elena and Marcus, they understand family. They get it. But you've always been different. You've always been separate. And fine. If that's what you want, then that's what we'll give you. You'll be separate." It was a threat wrapped in capitulation. She was telling me that if I didn't do what she wanted, I'd be formally cut off. Not gradually. Completely. I left her house that night without finishing dessert. The next morning, my phone started buzzing. A group text from my mom to me, Elena, and Marcus. I just want everyone to understand that family helps family. Some of us have forgotten that. I'm disappointed in those who won't step up. This is about loyalty, not money. Elena responded immediately. "Whatever you need, Mom. I'm here." Marcus. "Yeah, what's going on? Can someone explain?" My mom wrote back, "Never mind. Sarah's made her position clear. Let's move forward without her." I didn't respond, but Elena did. She started texting privately. "What did you do? Mom's crying." "This is so selfish, Sarah. Marcus and I are trying to help. Why can't you?" Marcus wasn't actually helping. He didn't have the credit or income, but Elena had started spinning the narrative. I tried to explain. I sent her a long message about co-signer risk, about my mom's phrasing, about the fact that this was Robert's debt, not theirs. "Elena, you're overthinking this. They need help. You have money. Do the right thing." The word money landed hard, because suddenly I realized this wasn't about whether I could help. It was about whether I would sacrifice my own financial security to enable Roberts and their poor decisions. And in my family's framework, saying no to that made me selfish. 3 days later, my dad called. This was unusual. He didn't normally insert himself into my mom drama. He said, "Your mom called me." "About what?" I asked, though I knew. "The loan. She's telling people you refused to help her because of a medical condition." My stomach dropped. "That's not what happened," I said carefully. "I know," my dad said. "I've known your mom for 30 years. I know how she works. But I wanted to hear it from you." I explained everything. The co-signer risk, Robert's credit history, the way she'd framed it. My dad was quiet. Then he said, "Sarah, you made the right call. But your mom's going to make you pay for it socially. That's her style. Just be prepared." And he was right. By the following week, I was getting passive-aggressive comments from aunts and uncles. One of my mom's friends who followed me on Instagram liked a post about financial independence, and then commented something cryptic like, "Not everyone understands real family values." At work, nobody knew. But I was hyper-aware of my phone, checking for messages that didn't come, waiting for the next volley. 2 weeks after the initial dinner, I got a call from my mom. Her voice was cold, formal. "We're moving forward with the loan," she said. "Robert and I made the decision to apply without you." Part of me was relieved. Part of me knew this was a setup. "Okay," I said carefully. "But the bank denied us. she continued. They said we need a cosigner or a larger down payment. $40,000 in liquid assets that we'd have to put down. Money we don't have. I waited. So here's what we're doing, she said. People that you refused to help us pay for my medical treatment. That you chose your money over your mother's health. And then she hung up. I sat in my apartment for a long time after that call. Because this wasn't just emotional manipulation anymore. This was a coordinated narrative attack. She was going to weaponize my medical needs to shame me in front of family and friends. I pulled up my banking app. I had around $80,000 in savings, hard-earned. And I thought about what would happen if I co-signed. If Robert defaulted. If I suddenly owed $40,000 I wasn't expecting. At my job, I see this kind of financial sabotage all the time. It's what I audit for. And the victims always have the same story. They seemed trustworthy. I didn't think they'd actually let me down. I needed to document everything. Starting that day, I created a file. I pulled every text message, every email, and let her leave a voicemail when I didn't pick up. I wanted a recording of her voice, her tone. I wrote down the date and exact wording of what she'd said to me. I also did something else. I asked my dad if he'd be willing to testify about his conversation with my mom. He said yes. Then I called an attorney. Not because I was planning to sue, I wasn't, but because I needed to understand my liability if I co-signed. A woman named Patricia was very clear. If you co-sign and he defaults, the bank will come after you. Not him. You. And there's no family hardship exception to that. You'd be legally on the hook for the full amount, including interest and late fees. Even though he's the one who has the damaged credit, I asked. Even though, she confirmed. Co-signing is a blank check, said something that stuck with me. It sounds like your mother is using emotional leverage to move you into a financial commitment you've already said no to. That's a pattern. Watch for escalation. I paid her for the consultation, and I felt something shift inside me. I had an expert in my corner now. Someone who wasn't emotionally entangled. Someone who could see the structure of what was happening. A week later, I got curious about something, and medical debt piling up. I wasn't going to ask her directly. I knew she'd lie. But I wondered if I could find any public information. I called my family doctor, the one I'd been seeing since childhood. I asked if they had any record of my mom seeking treatment for arthritis. The receptionist told me they didn't have anyone by her name in their system. So I called the rheumatologist's office she'd mentioned once. Same answer. Then I did something I'm not proud of. Workplace. I pretended to be calling about benefits information and asked if they had anyone named Robert with the last name Martinez, my mom's married name. They did. And when I asked if he had any recent claims or enrollments in a health plan, they couldn't tell me. Privacy, understandably, but they confirmed he worked there. So Robert had insurance. Arthritis was serious enough to justify a $40,000 loan. Wouldn't she be using his insurance to get treatment? I started to wonder if the medical debt was even real. I created another note on my phone, and I saved everything. About 3 weeks after the initial dinner, my mom called again and asked me to come over. We need to talk, she said. Face to face. I almost didn't go, but I did. I needed to see where this was headed. Robert was at work. Client meeting. Marcus was upstairs. It was just me and my mom in her kitchen, the same kitchen where she'd made that stir-fry and asked me to co-sign. She'd prepared something, not food this time. She had a printed email from the bank. It was the rejection letter for their loan application. She slid it across the counter to me. This is what you caused, she said quietly. I didn't cause it, I said. Your co-signer situation caused it. That's how lending works. Caused it, she corrected. And now I'm asking you directly, will you co-sign? I took a breath, and I said something I'd practiced with my attorney. Mom, I love you, and I'm not going to co-sign this loan. It's not a decision about you or about whether I care. It's a decision about protecting myself financially. That's not selfish. That's responsible." She stood up. Her voice got very quiet, which was somehow scarier than if she'd yelled. "Then you're out," she said. "There's no more contact. If you won't sacrifice for us, then you're not part of us." "Okay," I said. She blinked. She'd expected me to beg, to cry, to reconsider. "Okay?" she repeated. "Yes," I said. "I understand. I accept that boundary." And I stood up and I left. I didn't cry in my car. I didn't call Elena or text Marcus. I drove home and I organized all my documentation into a folder on my computer. I took screenshots of every message. I wrote a timeline, myself and to Patricia, my attorney, and then I waited to see what they'd do next. They were patient, actually. For 2 weeks, nothing. I heard nothing from my mom, Robert, Elena, or Marcus. It was eerie, the silence. Then, on a Tuesday evening, I got a call from my Aunt Jennifer, my mom's sister. She said, "Sarah, we're very disappointed in you. Your mom's having her surgery in 3 weeks and you're not stepping up. We're all helping out where we can." Except, it wasn't scheduled. Or at least, not that I'd heard about. "What surgery?" I asked. "Her arthritis treatment," Aunt Jennifer said, matter-of-factly. So the arthritis narrative was now a planned surgery. The story was evolving. They were building a case in the family's eyes. I thanked Aunt Jennifer and hung up. Then I did something I'd been waiting to do. I sent an email to Patricia, my attorney, with the subject line, "Timeline of events, potential financial coercion." April 15th, initial dinner, loan request, not real family comment. April 16th, group text narrative shift. April 22nd, dad calls, confirms mom's framing to extended family. April 29th, mom tells me they're applying without me, threatens public shaming. May 5th, I consult with you about cosigner liability. May 10th, I discover discrepancy in medical narrative, no actual doctor appointment. May 27th, Aunt Jennifer calls with escalated medical emergency story. I added, the story is changing. The ask remains the same. What's my exposure if they continue? Patricia called me back within an hour. She said, "Sarah, this is textbook emotional coercion, coupled with what could be considered defamation, if they're telling family that you refuse to pay for a medical emergency that doesn't exist. Document everything, and get ready. They're going to escalate further." The escalation came from an unexpected direction. Marcus texted me, "Can we talk? Privately?" We set up a video call that evening, and Marcus, bless him, had a conscience his mother didn't. He told me that my mom had asked him to call me and emotionally manipulate me into co-signing, that she'd told him to say he was struggling financially, and that my help would change his life. He said, "I don't feel comfortable lying to you. I wanted you to know that's the plan." My hands were shaking. This was the smoking gun. This was intent, manipulation. "Are you going to tell her you told me?" I asked carefully. "No," Marcus said, "but Sarah, I think you should protect yourself." I asked him to send me a message confirming everything he'd just said. It took him a minute, but he did. "Mom asked me to call you and say I need financial help because of my podcast, but that's not true. I'm actually fine. She wanted me to help convince you to co-sign. I don't feel right about it, so I'm telling you instead." Immediately, I forwarded it to Patricia. And then I did something I'd been considering. I sent my mom a formal email. Not angry, not emotional, just clear and documented. The email said, "Mom, I'm writing this to document my position clearly. I will not co-sign alone. I have consulted with a financial advisor and an attorney. Both have advised me that doing so would place me at unacceptable financial risk. This is my final answer, and I need you to stop telling family members that I'm refusing to pay for your medical care." That's not an accurate representation of what's happening. I'm willing to maintain contact with you, but only if we establish a boundary around this request. If the pressure continues, I'll pursue legal remedies, including, but not limited to, a cease and desist letter. I hope we can move forward respectfully. Sarah. I sent it from my email. I printed it. I had a timestamp. Response. It came 2 days later, from Robert, not my mom, Robert himself. The email said, "Sarah, we're very disappointed, but we understand. We'll find another way. We hope you'll reconsider, but we'll respect your decision." It was almost gracious. It was almost final. And then, 3 days later, I got a call from Aunt Jennifer again. She said my mom was in the hospital, that she'd had some kind of breakdown, that the family thought I should know directly. I didn't give any information away. I just asked if a patient by my mom's name was currently admitted. They said they couldn't confirm that information over the phone without a patient PIN. I called my dad. He said my mom had called him in tears, that she was saying I'd broken her heart, that she was saying some very concerning things. But when I asked if she was actually in the hospital, he said, "I'm not sure. I haven't gone to check." The crisis felt like another layer of the manipulation. I emailed Patricia. They're escalating the emotional narrative. What do I do? Patricia said, "Document the hospital rumor. Call the hospital. Get her actual status on record. If she's not there, that's evidence of false claims to manipulate you." I called the hospital again, but this time I asked to speak to patient services. I explained that I was receiving reports of a family member's hospitalization, but I hadn't been contacted directly. Patient by her name currently admitted. After a pause, the representative said, "I'm not finding anyone by that name." I asked about the past week. She said there was no record of admission in the past 10 days. I documented the call. Time. Representative's name. Exact words. My mom wasn't in the hospital. She'd never been admitted. The fabrication was complete. Patricia drew up a cease and desist letter. It wasn't hostile. It was clear. 2. My mom's name. Our address. This letter is to inform you that my mom's name and other members of her household have engaged in a sustained pattern of emotional coercion, false claims, and public misrepresentation regarding a personal financial matter between myself and my mom. Specifically, 1. Repeated requests that I co-sign a loan after I have declined multiple times. 2. False claims to extended family that I have refused to pay for medical care. 3. Hospitalization to generate additional emotional pressure. 4. Instruction of a family member to contact me under false pretenses to manipulate my decision. This conduct constitutes a pattern of harassment and emotional abuse. I am requesting that all contact regarding this loan matter cease immediately. This includes direct requests, indirect requests through family members, and public statements to extended family. Continues, I will pursue legal remedies, including but not limited to filing a harassment complaint and pursuing civil action. This letter is sent without malice, but with the clear intention of establishing a boundary around my financial autonomy and personal well-being. Respectfully, Sarah Chen. I had it notarized. I mailed it certified. I kept copies. Within 24 hours of her receiving it, my mom called me. Not to fight, to negotiate. She said, I got your letter, being threatened. It's not a threat, I said. It's a boundary. There's a difference. I'm your mother, she said. Yes, I said. And I'm your daughter. And I'm also a person with financial autonomy. Those things can all be true at the same time. She tried a few more angles. Guilt. Sob stories. Even an apology that wasn't really an apology. But I stayed calm. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't let her pull me into emotional justification. I said, the letter is clear. And I hung up. That was 6 months ago. Since then, Robert applied for a personal loan with a co-signer who wasn't me. I don't know who. I don't ask. Elena reached out once, trying to bridge the gap. I was polite but firm. I said I was open to a relationship with her, but not if she was going to continue to pressure me on my mom's behalf. Marcus texts me occasionally. We've actually become closer, because he respects the fact that I didn't compromise myself. Spoken. The cease and desist worked. The silence is real. And honestly, the silence is peaceful. I want to say something that I think matters. Family is important. But family doesn't get to use love as a weapon, and financial security isn't selfish. It's survival. My mom called me not real family because I wouldn't sacrifice myself. But I realized something in the aftermath. The only thing that wasn't real was her version of what family should be. Ask you to destroy yourself to prove your loyalty. Real family respects your boundaries. Real family accepts your no. I still have that empty space where she used to be. Sometimes I think about calling her. But then I remember how it felt in that kitchen, how calm I was when I walked out, and I know I made the right choice. I didn't win because I screamed louder or proved them wrong in some dramatic confrontation. Documented everything. I got expert advice. I stayed calm, and I refused to compromise. If you've been through something like this, if you've been pressured by family using guilt or false narratives or emotional emergencies that don't add up, tell me in the comments. What would you have done differently? How did you set your boundary? Because the truth is, this story isn't really about my mom or the loan. It's about what happens when you finally believe you're worth protecting.